Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
We are speaking with the bassist Rev Jones, who of course spends a lot of time on the road these days with George Thorogood. Well, these days nobody's spending time on the road, but normally spends a lot of time on the road with George Thorogood as his tech, one of his techs, as we say in Montreal. Bonjour, Rev. How are you?
How are you? I'm good.
Good.
Trapped here in my home prison.
The home prison, yeah. You know, you're one of these guys that has all this tech head and gear whore kind of stuff. Talk to me just real quick before we get into what you're doing in terms of touring and bands, and we talk Michael Schenker. When George needs his guitars tweaked or they're working on a designer model, they send that stuff to you first, right?
Yeah, we did. Well, when we came out with his new model, we actually had a version of it. They took a couple of his old ones, lasered them, and so they made a version of it, and we had it out there. And for like a few months, I had to sneak it to him, not let him know it was the new one. I'd hand it to him, walk off. He's not gonna chase me and go, "What is this?" But and we had, we tweaked it. He wouldn't like something. We'd sit there and he'd tell me what the area was because he didn't know what was wrong. He just knew when I play here, something is weird. So I'd take, and I'd try everything possible. Me and Jeff Pitt, the production manager, we had a pretty big role in all of that, But it's because I hear him play all the time. I watch him play. I know how he plays, so I know why, somebody else can play it and go, it's perfect, but he plays real hard, And so when he digs into it, that's the big difference. And that's one of those things that I learned from like playing with Leslie West. I think when me and Leslie are playing with any drummer, and he gets slightly off from the one because he's so loud, he's holding a note, and all of a sudden he's off. So here's his one. I can hear that in my ear, and if he's trying to look at us to cue us, we'd never be able to follow, So I hear it, so I start trying to cue the drummer to roll that way. It's kind of the same deal. That built up my ear enough that I can hear when George plays something, I could tell what he's having problems with,
Now, George also, and we'll finish with George before we move on to the other stuff. He's currently working on a new album, right?
George is, I'm not sure. Right now, he's working on his hair getting longer.
I see you're doing the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't shave today.
No, but
I talk to George once or twice a week, and he's good spirits. Swimming every day for a couple hours, and his hair's kind of blondish because of the sun, and it's kind of long, But he's in good spirits. He's ready to get back out, and start doing something.
Yeah.
As for their album, I'm not sure. We had recorded a bunch of songs. All that was left was George's guitar and to redo the vocals, and we're trying to coerce him right now into me and Sean going out there and finishing it at his house. But it's George.
But baby steps, yeah, and it's too bad because when COVID hit. One of the first shows that got canceled for me was George coming to Montreal, and it's just like that's always a good time. George loves the city. The city is one of the places that gave him his break. Back in the 70s when he was playing to 5 people in Delaware, he'd come to Montreal and there'd be 200 people standing outside of a club, and he'd be like, oh. So there's always been that connection. So hopefully we'll get you back here. I know that you're looking at dates for 2021 up here, and let's make it happen, and we'll go out and we'll have some great food together. It'll be fun.
Just so you know, he loves Canada. He would rather go to Canada every year than anywhere else. So which we all love it. I mean, it's always a good time. We were actually, the bad thing on this the run that canceled was we were gonna do 3 nights at I can't even think of the club there. I think it's in Toronto. It's the first club or the first venue you ever played at there or something.
I'm trying to think. There's a bunch of them. There's El Macombo. There's
that's
Rock.
what it was. We were going to play there 3 nights, and they were going to film it, and we were going to release a DVD. and there were going to be guest players, and so that that was kind of a bummer, you know.
Yeah, and that club just got refurbished and was doing this grand new opening, and of course, infamously or famously, the Rolling Stones played there years and years ago, and that would have been great. Anyway, let us move on to.
It'll reschedule. I mean, I think that they're technically, and I think it is rescheduled, but they just haven't. You know, they don't want to release the info and then have to cancel it. You know, change it again. So.
Well, hopefully when it's rescheduled, I'll be able to come out because I want to be part of a George Thorogood DVD. That would be great.
There you go.
The Texas Hippie Coalition is a band that has been around for quite a while, since about 2004. In fact, in 2010, they released an album called Rollin. We're on its 10th anniversary. They're going to go out and do a few shows. And, of course, your Rev Jones Band is going to open. It's going to be a streaming thing. Talk to me. Let's give the fans the details. So, what day, what time, what link do they go to tune in? And start with that.
It's October 3rd, so 2 weeks from now. It's at the Diamond Ballroom in Oklahoma City, which you just go to diamondballroom.com, and you can buy your tickets there, or you can buy streaming tickets. So the whole show will be streamed. It's us, Rev Jones Band, Horse Called War, which is a great Oklahoma band from about 10 years ago, and then Texas Hippies. And I think they're only doing that Rollin album. And and I'll probably get them to play a couple of songs with them, you know, because my connection with them is I filled in a couple of tours playing bass, you know, because their bass player couldn't get a visa, so I went to Europe with them. And anytime that they have an issue for whatever reason that the bass player can't do it, Rich calls me, and, you know, that way I don't have to rehearse. We just, you know, I know the songs. I go there, play the gig, you know. It's like a family thing, you know. Them being Texas and me in Oklahoma, so.
Talk to me a little bit about filling in on bass, because you've done it. Well, I don't want to say filling in, but you've played with Leslie West, you've played with Michael Schenker. You help out these guys. Who are some of the other bands you help out? Have you ever gotten in a position with George Thorogood, for example, where somebody's feeling ill and you go, hey, you got to step up tonight. You got to step in. Yeah,
I'm technically, even before I was doing guitar teching for him, I was the backup bass player, you know, because Bill had, I guess Buddy had got sick years ago, and they got trapped where for a few shows they didn't have a sax, you know. So George told everybody they needed to have a backup, you know, for whatever. So Bill had called me, and, you know, one night, and it was back when Bill used to drink. So it was a fun conversation, you know. He started out buzzed and ended drunk. Those good old days. But yeah, so I was already the backup bass player anyway, in case something happened. But I did play a show, I guess it was a couple years ago. It was a benefit show that Thorogood did. It was only like 4 songs, and it was a Robbie Krieger, like, I don't even remember what the fundraiser was.
I think it might have been a 50th anniversary show or something like that, because a lot of people showed up.
Yeah, but he wasn't even announced. You know, it was like, you know, it was a bunch of people like Tommy from Kiss, and, you know, a couple guys from Berlin. That band Berlin played, and, you know, it was a pretty cool gig. And so Thorogood played. Jim Suhler was in Europe on tour with his band, so they were just going to do it with, you know, with just George playing. And then he mentioned to me, hey, do you want to play guitar? I said, yeah, I can play guitar. So I get to the show, and, you know, and right before the show, he's all excited. Okay, I need you to do the solo that Jimmy does on that first song. Just like it. I like it just like it is, you know. Fortunately, I learned it that way, you know. So that was probably the first gig I played as a guitar player since, I don't know, my first gig maybe, or my second gig, you know. I've always been a bass player, but so it was kind of cool going out and playing guitar with George, and watching Jeff, the front of house guy. He had to do guitars.
The FOH guy doing guitars. Just talk to me real quick in terms of What has COVID meant for you in terms of not having shows and not being out there? Does it force you to have to go get a new job? Does it force you to rethink your career? Are you just on hold? How has it sort of affected the business end of it? Because a lot of folks are suffering. And so, first of all,
Yeah.
are you suffering? And if you are, what are you doing to stop the suffering?
Well, the part I'm suffering on is that my my life has been music since I was, 14 years old, 15 years old. So ugh, that was about 35 years ago. So for 35 years, I've been, just doing this. I play music. That's what I do. If I'm not working playing, then I work for a lighting company, and now I tech. So it, the one thing that's hard is that thing that I have to go out and do. Like it's like if you all your life you did one thing, now they're telling you can't do it. There's nowhere to do it, and it's kind of like a pain inside. It's like there's nothing to do. Even when I try to do something, I can't just can't go do it. Even with work, fortunately I get to collect unemployment because our stuff was government shutdown. Uh, but even that, I can't. All my backup jobs, I can't go work as a stagehand at a show. There's no shows. I can't teach because nobody's doing lessons right now because of the contact. Uh, I've been getting a few recording gigs, where, you know, that to keep me kind of, sane, I guess. I've been working on my album, my new album, stuff like that just to stay sane. But, fortunately, my wife is working at home. So, and she's making, good money. So we're not in trouble financially yet, but,
But it's tough.
yeah, and it's really the biggest strain, uh, too, is that I can't really, like, I still get offers to go play shows, and I can't really go do it because then I'm risking my wife getting sick or my 4 year old getting sick, And so if it's just a cover gig or something that's not very much money, I would normally take it just to play, because I like to play, but it's, I got to think of that, So
Well, let
it's
me ask
it's
you. Let me
it's a
ask you
little rough,
this. Oh, it's incredibly rough, and the media has talked a lot about the music business being in a lot of trouble, but also the film business is in a lot of trouble. How do you film the new whatever action movie if you can't have people wrestling around punching? It's like how do you film NCIS and have a scene in downtown L.A. when we can be in downtown L.A. But let me ask you this, and then we'll talk about the album, and then I want to get over to Schenker.
Yeah.
Do you think that when the industry does open up, we are going to lose a lot of the people that have made it great? I mean, there's a lot of roadies and a lot of tour managers who said, you know what, I got to go find another job, and they found another job. I'm not sure they're going to be willing to quit it in a year from now and then risk it all over again. I think if you've gone and gotten a new job as an accountant or as a whatever, or you're going to look back in a year from now and go, you know what, I love touring with Def Leppard, for example, but fuck it, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not
I
going to
mean,
risk my family.
fortunately, a lot of the guys I know that are, big techs, fortunately, most of them are either actually still working right now, or, like on retainer, so, it's one of the, yeah, it's a hard deal. It's even like me. If, whenever before I got okayed for the unemployment, I kept thinking, well, what am I going to do? Because to go start a new job that doesn't pay very much compared to what I normally make, I would do it because I have to, provide for my family. But then you have that thing of, well, now I'm taking the chance of getting sick there, so that's really not any different than going and playing a cover gig, So then it's, you start battling with that anyway. But one thing that I have heard about in the last few days, I talked to Adam Condi, and we were talking about he talked to the management or the people that booked George and everything at William Morris, and I guess a lot of bands are already out playing. I know that there's a lot of bands coming through here, bands like Enough's Enough and, Bullet Boys, those kind of bands, that level. But then like 38 Special, they've been out on the road playing, all these bands that played at Sturgis, so I think that
there's a lot of them.
The people that are going to be affected the most on the whole thing is the people that were in arenas, because if they drop it down to like half house somewhere, those mid-level and the higher mid-level bands, you can go in and play a half house and it still be a successful show. If you're normally pulling 20,000 people and now you have to play to 10,000, you're probably not going to make enough for the production, to break even. That's why. I imagine that's one of the big reasons that Trans-Siberian Orchestra, went ahead and canceled, because the production is so huge, and even though they do 2 shows a day, that you could still say, all right, well, we could half house them. That's a lot of people and a lot of payroll every week.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't have at half house,
And Trans-Siberian Orchestra rely on that visual because that's the whole spectacular. I mean, they could obviously play a set without the pyro and without the lasers because musicianship wise they're fine, but you go there to see the lasers and you
exactly.
go.
It's like Kiss can play without the makeup and the
right
explosions, but we've seen that and we don't want to see that again.
Right, and you see, so a lot of those arena bands, they could scale back the production and give you more of a bare bones show and then sort of help mitigate the cost. And you could go, you can go see Foreigner and just see them, really playing, and you'd be okay, great. But Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you certainly can't. Anyway, it's a tough one. The new album.
Oh yeah, plus another thing, a lot of these bands, about half of those big bands, you take away that production, and they are terrible. Not TSO, definitely.
No,
not,
but
some of those other people, you take away the big show, and you're like, it's like my dad said, he wishes these people wouldn't do these live streams of them playing acoustic, because without their band they sound terrible.
Well, yeah, listen, there some of those arena acts and those stadium acts have gone from being musicians to being entertainers, and I don't mean that in any kind of negative sense, but you go there for the entertainment, to go see. And sometimes the music, it becomes secondary. And again, that's not meant to insult anybody, but it's true. You go there and you go, oh my God, he flew in the sky and he did this, and you see, and the confetti and the video screens, and it was amazing. And sometimes fans, that when they leave the show, they actually don't really talk about the music. They talk about what they saw. So it's important.
It's like, well, I remember being at a Motley Crue. It was on that circus tour, and I was standing there like right next to Tommy while they were playing. Me and Athena and James Kotak and their kids. We were watching the show from behind the amps, and I just remember whenever he did his drum solo, he goes up in the air and he acts like he's playing some kind of bongos, which is obviously on the track because there was nothing up there, just a big thing. Then he flies across to this side. He does this. And I remember Kotak looking at me going, see, this is why people can't do drum solos anymore and impress anybody. Because no matter what you do, you're not going to be as cool as him. And then he
with
flew across,
the Motley show with the piano that's on a track and the backing vocals that are on tracks, and oh my God,
drum solo, bass on the track.
Bass is on track.
Oh yeah, my favorite thing, DJ Will, whenever he did the review of the last L.A. Motley Crue show, he said, I used to like it a lot better whenever Nicky acted like he was playing, instead of throwing his bass down at the beginning of Red Hot and walking off, and all you hear is bass and drums.
The great secrets. Let me get over here to this album. Be Aware of the Scorpions, or Be Aware of Scorpions. An album you did in the early 2000s with Michael Schenker. I got it back then, and for some reason it never really connected with me back then. I guess because who knows, time and era. But I pulled it out recently, and I love the hell out of this thing. I'm just looking at some of these songs here. No Turning Back, Reflection of Your Heart, Roll It Over, Sea of Memory. Just a lot of great tunes. Talk to me about how you got picked up for this. And yes, I'm going to ask you some of the naughtier questions after, because we know how that ended. But right? We know how that ended, but talk to me just quickly. How did Schenker and you and this band hook up?
Well, Jeff Martin played drums on that album, So me and Jeff had first played together in Black Symphony. So Jeff was actually Michael was still in UFO at that time, and Jeff was playing drums with UFO on the tour that I don't even think it ended. I think he had halfway through it. Michael, it was in his drinking days, and so they start to work on this new album. So he tells Jeff to find a bass player that he wants to play with that is also crazy like Pete. So of course he tells him about me. I called Michael the first time, talked to him. It's kind of cool. I sent him an album that I think it was like a compilation of stuff I played on, and a video of me doing a bass solo live and us doing like Smoke on the Water where we all sing a verse, and I sent that so he could see it. I could sing backups and stuff. So I sent it to him. He never listened to the album. He told me later because he didn't want to be influenced or accidentally steal a song, without knowing. That's why he didn't listen to any music, and then all he watched was the video. He was watching the video and he seen that I started singing, so he turned the volume up to hear it. So technically he just watched me play. He really didn't know anything until then. So we made an agreement. Peter Knorn was his manager at the time. He was from the other Hanover band, the other German, Victory. He was the bass player.
I was gonna say Scorpions, but okay, yeah, Victory.
Yeah, he was the bass player for Victory. But so he was managing him. He was real cool. But I still kind of went in, not really knowing all the details because that organization back then, especially, only told you what they really needed to tell you. So I still didn't really know anything. So I get there to Phoenix. He was still living in Phoenix, and they converted his house into a studio and Michael Schenker Records. So I get there, start doing the album, and it was cool. The weird thing is that I'm doing the album, I'm playing my bass parts, and we're shooting the promo pictures the whole time. So it was very hard, to do. And with any Michael Schenker album, the first thing recorded is the guitar. So it's just a click and the guitar, all the solos, everything. So then you go back and add the drums and bass and vocals. And
that's actually very strange because most recordings that I've been involved with, they always do the rhythm tracks first. You build a house on the foundation, drums and bass.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I do the drums last.
Okay.
That way it doesn't influence, like on my songs, that way it doesn't influence the riffs anyway, because they're in my field. Then the drummer can play whatever he wants because it's not going to throw me off at that point, or influence it and change it. So there is cool things with that. I think that's why Michael does it. That way he knows exactly, this is how the song goes. So anything you add, he knows that it's being added instead of later on when he starts playing it, that will not work, So
it's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah.
The weird thing on it, there was so we did the songs and the singer Chris, he was complaining about some of the drum parts, saying it was going to step on his vocal, kind of the same thing we just talked about, which I don't know how that would ever be. He was new. I think it was the first album he ever did anyway. But so he hold on. Sorry. So he wanted to hear all the songs, what we had done. So after listening to all the songs, then he tells Michael that he said, well, what happened to the other 3 songs? And he said, what do you mean? He said, you gave me a tape. Michael had gave him a tape of these 3 songs. It was just instrumental. It was him and Barry and Shane Gallus playing from years before that. And he said, well, I didn't think you wanted to do them. He said, well, those are the best ones. I wrote lyrics. And so we had to pull out this cassette and, put it on there. So then we had to play to this cassette. We didn't have time for Michael to do it and then us add because we were on the tight schedule. So Jeff had to play drums to it, which was, a little hard, but he got it because there's no click. Then I went to play bass on it. The problem was it was tuned slightly different than what we were. So I had to play bass to it completely out of tune. And, so in my head, it was like, it was just killing me. So we did these songs, and they were actually pretty good. I mean, they're not bad. They were on the album. I don't remember which ones, but so it's like we did all these songs, and then actually I think there's 3 songs or 2 songs that didn't end up on the album. One of them ended up on the
Japanese.
One of them was on the Japanese album. One of them was on another release of the album, and then there was another song that was on Written in Sand when they re-released it. It was just a bonus track.
Written in Sand's a good record, by the way.
And so there was one song called Ride the Lightning. It was on the Japan version.
Yeah.
Why I Know or something. It was like that. The Ride the Lightning, Jeff Martin sang. And then the other song is Sweet Cool Kiss of Night. And it was on the re-release of Written in Sand. I actually just on my, I just put it on my Facebook page in the last couple of days. I just put a link to it, just saying it was a cool song, blah blah. But
feel free to send me any demos, by the way.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you that song should have been on the album. It's like the weirdest Schenker song you've ever heard. I mean, it's just his the timing of it, I mean, and to me that's still one of his coolest albums. That Beware of Scorpions. Those riffs that he did. That was like. It was so different and creative compared to all of his other, I mean, he's always creative in the soloing, but, a lot of the rhythms are, they're kind of played out a little bit.
Yeah, but I think they're great songs. I mean, they like I said, 20 years ago when it came out, it didn't register, but I've been listening to it recently and I'm like, wow, there's some really great tunes here.
The same time we did that, they did the Plot album.
Yes, with Pete Way.
Yeah, with Pete Way. And Pete Way that's when I first met him. He was there, the whole time. So they did that, but then they also did this other album that was just Jeff and Schenker, and it was, I think Marty Friedman was supposed to be the other guitar player, and it was just going to be an instrumental thing that was like one long song, basically, that was like 30 minutes. And I remember hearing it, and it was pretty cool, a bunch of these weird riffs, and nothing happened because we did the Beware of Scorpions albums. We went to do our first tour, played 5 shows, and Schenker walked off stage, and that was the end of the tour.
That was the end of the tour.
And
it
was during that time whenever Michael he had the long beard, he looked like a vagrant, he had the cross tattooed here, not realizing that it just made him look like Charles Manson. He was like, oh no, it is because I am religious. I said, well, it doesn't look that way. But so it's during that time, and so after that happened, nobody wanted to, we spent 4 years rebuilding a name. Well, then when he released the Tales of Rock and Roll album that had all the different singers on it, all of that music was from that instrumental album that him and Jeff did. That's why Jeff's on that album. He took those songs and like cut and pasted and made songs out of those sections. And had the singer sing on it,
Listen, we can say whatever we want about him being kooky at times, but incredibly gifted. I mean, what.
Oh yeah, well, and the thing is with him back then, he didn't know it. Nobody knew this. A big part of that was the women he was with. One of them being really bad, that she had him on all these like nervous pills, Valium and stuff like that. Had a doctor, put him on these, and the doctor told him he needed to be on them. Well, then he would drink a beer. An American beer on top of that. As the only German I know that could drink an American beer, But he would drink a beer, and then there was a chemical imbalance thing. And so then he'd get loony. And it wasn't that he was drunk, wasn't that he was high. It was that a lot of that was,
the secondary effects or whatever.
Yeah, and then all the times that I ever had problems with him, it came from that. He would get to that position, then he was nervous, and he was embarrassed, so he would drink more. And it would just spiral out of control, But
oh my God,
he's been as a player, even at those worst of times, his playing was always. I mean, even though a couple of those nights he was real bad, but he was, he's still one of the most gifted guitar players you'll ever hear. I mean, the stuff that I hear in my ears when I'd be playing with him, it would be so incredible. And it's funny because those are the nights that the people, all the fans would go, yeah, he was okay. And those are the nights that anybody that's a real player that really knows music would be like, that's incredible, because it's when you see somebody come out of their zone, and play, just what they want to play from from whatever. They don't have no limitations like, oh, I have to stay in this kind of sound. When you hear him start playing something else that's jazzy or something out of time, you're like, oh, that's killer, But
yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize when you go back to the early Scorpions that he played on and the early UFO, and I'm talking, from 1971 to 1976.
mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads copied. You people go, oh, wow, Eddie Van Halen's doing this great thing. And you go, yeah, but it was done 8 years ago by Schenker on this Scorpion.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, we love Eddie, but go back. And you're like,
yeah,
oh.
People always forget that.
Yeah.
People always think of Jimi Hendrix for the sound and everything. Richie Blackmore had that sound before that.
Yeah.
He was playing way more complicated stuff, but he wasn't. Well, one, he didn't die, and two, it wasn't the same. I mean, he was doing the same stuff, catch his guitar on fire, all that stuff. But he was just a white, British guy or whatever, So there was nothing there. But you see Jimi Hendrix, and he's a black guy, and he's got the awesome outfit on, and he's doing it. That's the one everybody remembers,
Yeah. So
a lot of times people always forget about Leslie. And they always forget about Michael. It's two people that I played with that are so incredible that people overlook them or forget about them,
Mountain,
and then when you go back and review it, they're like, oh, man,
Well, I was listening to a couple of the early Scorpion ones, and I heard this riff, and I think the song's called Going Mad or whatever. And anyway, and I'm going, that's Everybody Wants Some. That's the same, wait, that came out before. I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll start wrapping up, but Michael has used a lot of different singers, and what I find incredible is that every singer that he's ever worked with or every singer that he's brought in seems to work. You look at Macaulay, you look at Bonnet, you look at Barden, and they all bring their own Doogie White. Now, on this album, he has Chris Logan, so I want to quickly ask you about this. Before we get into anything negative, you have to give the guy his due in terms of singing. The vocals on the album sounds great.
Yeah, he was the only problem Chris Logan ever had was he was not a front man ever,
Right.
He was still new to it. He had a great rock and roll voice, like he sounded great. He pretty much had, was in control when he'd sing, but he was bad on that to the point to where when we did that live DVD in Poland, Michael suggested that I speak between the songs because I was more authority whenever I do it, and I didn't want to do that. One, because I knew there'd be a weird thing, and two, it's a singer's job, So instead, I worked with Chris, and we worked out some things, and he did good on there. I was really impressed that he, because all the things that I, taught him to do, in between songs, he did, and it was great.
It's kind of funny though, because you look at Cheap Trick, and most of the time it's Rick Nielsen that comes up and does all the talking. I don't think I've ever seen, maybe I'm wrong, but has Robin Zander ever sat there and go, "Hey Montreal, it's great to be here"? Like I don't think you see that.
I have seen it, but I don't.
It's rare.
I don't remember how much. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does happen, and
and it's some people you can't even teach them that. You could say this word for word, and they're not, and they can't do it. He basiche basically wanted to learn because he didn't want to have me talking on the DVD. I didn't either, So that's why he listened, and that's why he learned, and it was great. The only problem with Chris really was he would have to drink before he went on because he's nervous, So then he'd be excited because of the show and drunk, or you could say buzzed or whatever, but if you're drinking and you're not used to drinking, you're drunk. I don't care how you
all right, so
word it.
Let me ask you about this. So you're playing a show somewhere in Europe, and on the bus, basically, you come to blows. You knock him out, you punch him out,
Yeah.
then he quits or he's fired, or you leave him on the side of the road and drive off with the bus, whatever the story was, and you can fill in the details. What happened that night? So where are we? What happened?
Yeah.
Was he just drunk and you just went, you fucking drunk ass?
Yeah.
And like,
well,
what?
like I said, he was always like that. Me and him had almost gotten a couple of fights before that. I calmly got him to, not be an idiot. Well, then on that same tour, he had got mad at Michael and swung at Michael one night, tried to hit him. Him and the sound guy had got into it. So all these things, and I'd always protected him because we're in Europe. So if he's gone and the tour ends up stopping right then, we all got to get home, and our tickets aren't good till the end of the tour, and it's going to come out of our pockets because that's how it works, So I was always protecting. So we get to Stockholm. We're playing a show, and I don't remember I think it was the BBC or something. There was a company that come out, and they filmed 3 songs of the show for a TV show. So we all had to, agree that they could use it, If,
You have to sign the waiver.
Yeah. So Chris calls a meeting with the whole band, and he starts saying that he found out they're doing the whole show and they're going to release it, and we're signing away all this. And, I just stood up and said, hey, if we don't sign it, they're still filming. They're just not going to show us. That's how it is, period. And why would he release it when we just released a DVD from Poland in a big arena instead of a, small venue? So he was like, and everybody else agreed, and we walked off. So he was already kind of wanting to sabotage the show, So he comes out, and, the show's fine. I noticed when we come off for the encore, I go over by Michael, and I said something to him, and he started yelling that Chris was drunk and touching, like grabbing him while he's playing, And I didn't see any of this. So I go up there, and I run over to tell Chris not to, I said, man, stay away from him. He's mad. I still don't know what's going on. So then we get on the bus later, and they're all washing clothes all day. Well, all of a sudden, Chris goes in and sees that all this laundry sitting on top of the dryer, thinks that it's his. And so he goes out to the tour manager, starts arguing with him because he thinks that he threw his stuff there. And it's not. Actually, the tour manager put all his stuff, folded it, put it in a bag, and put it in his bunk. So they start like arguing and fighting outside. And I'm already in my bunk with I got pajamas on. There's snow outside, like this, this tall off the ground. And so I get to the door, and I see them squared off arguing at each other. So everybody jumps in and grabs the tour manager because he's a pretty big guy. And then Chris hits him in the face and cut his eye open too. So I ran out and tackled him down, held him there until he was completely calm and let him up, So then we go back on the bus, and they start arguing again. So by this time, I put shoes on in case I have to go back out there. And so then they get out there, they square off, and I jump out there, and I won't let anybody stop it. I tell everybody else, I said, anybody jumps in, I'm going to fight you, because they're grown men. They can do this right now. And then Chris realized he was actually going to have to fight Dave. So he said, all right, I quit. I quit the band. I'm going home. I quit. So he made him unload all the equipment so he could get his mic stand, his in-ears, and all this, because he's going home the next day. So, and I'm still in protective mode at this point. We're on the bus. He's here. I'm kind of keeping anybody from getting him, Michael's hiding in the closet or the bathroom the whole time. He didn't want any confrontation, So, and then he's still cussing everybody, and he's cussing everybody. And he said, and fuck you too, you fucking traitor, to me, and put his finger right here. So I just started hitting him. At that point, I was like, all right, game's over. And I started hitting him, and I hit him until the bus driver stopped, opened the door, and I threw him out, And I didn't want to hit him. Last thing I wanted to do, hell, I don't even have a knuckle anymore. I shattered my knuckle and broke that bone right there. So
on Chris's face?
Yep. And
fantastic.
None of the punches missed.
Right.
None of them just kind of grazed. They were all solid punches, and it's funny because nobody tried to stop me. everybody had the same thing. Like, oh, I was wondering how long it was going to take before and I mean, it sucked that I had to do that. It was terrible. Like I said, I can't even make a fist now, but that was just one of those things that happened. So the promoter rep that was on tour from Spain, he took Chris and they got on a train and went to the next city, got a hotel. And the whole time he's thinking, okay, well, maybe tomorrow he'll sober up and it'll be good. I know that it's not. Me and the manager start trying to figure out how we got to save this. And then I remembered that Michael had a singer named Leif Sundin that sang on an album that was from Sweden. So we track his number down in the middle of the night and track his number down. We call him, and he's in Stockholm. Now we're in the new city. So he agrees to do the rest of the tour, takes a train down to the next city, doesn't know these songs because he's never sang these songs. When he did the album and the tour, but on that tour, he didn't sing any songs except the album. David Van Landing, I think, is the guy that sang on all the other songs. So he was still learning them. And so also the singer for the opening band got up and sang one song each night. And then me and Wayne sang it on, I think. And but and we finished the tour, and it was amazing because you realized how much stress Chris brought. I mean, I had no problem with him as a singer. I always got along with him, but he brought so much stress. Complaining all the time that once he was gone, it was like
breath of fresh air. Yeah.
And the worst thing is that I had to solo and play every night with a broken hand. My hand was black. You couldn't see any of my tattoos because it was just solid black. I'd get past the solo, then I was like, oh, thank God, then it was relief. And I remember one funny thing. We were in Greece, and we went to this, it was a Scorpions fan club party at this bar, and they'd invited us. So me and I think the whole band went down, and we were sitting there, and Michael grabs my hand and holds it up. He goes, "This is the greatest thing that ever happened to MSG."
Yeah, and of course, Life had played on the Written in Sand album, which I gotta
Great
say,
things.
it's a great album. That one, it's you listen to it, and it's like a great sort of melodic rock kind of thing.
What happened with him was that same woman that did all the other stuff with Schenker. She was supposed to take care of his visa, Leif, when he was over there recording, and his visa ran out. She said, "No, it's taken care of. Don't worry." It ran out. So then when he finally goes home, they're like, "Your visa ran out 2 months ago." So he was never allowed to come to the States again. He can go through Europe because that's their thing. But yeah, he told me that. And it just screwed him because, and they couldn't, that's why they had to get Van Landing to sing, was because they had nobody to sing on the tour in America,
Is Life banned for life? Like, now we're in 2020. This was 1996, 97. I mean, can he come back now?
So.
God.
Yeah. I mean, and if not, he would have to apply for it, and then there would be what happened? And then you had that problem that if you're a stranger in a country and somebody tells you, "Oh yeah, it's taken care of," and they brought you there, you think that it is. Well, who's going to believe that? Because they would just say, "Well, you're a grown man, you should," But I know, because I've been in those situations where somebody says it's taken care of, and I don't believe it.
Listen, my dad had it right years ago when he said to me, "If you want something done right, do it yourself." And that's sort of the way I've already looked at it. And then we'll finish on this, and then we'll remind the folks about the show with Texas Hippie Coalition.
Also I'm working on a new Rev Jones album too.
Oh, right, we skipped over that, but let me just so we'll do that. But let me just ask you this: in 2005, our favorite singer Chris pens this long letter, which basically attacks you from the start of the letter to the end of the letter. And I'm not going to read details; people can go find it if they want. But he says, "Hey, Michael, thank you for everything. And now Rev did this, Rev did this, Rev did this, Rev did this, Rev did this." Yeah. Do you remember reading that letter going, "You motherfucker"?
Well, it's funny. Where he lost his credibility on it was, he posted that the next day. He posted saying that this happened. He was attacked from behind, all this. And it was, but he never said who it was until later. He said it, he posted it again. He said it was me. But so everybody thought it was Michael because none of us posted anything about it. None of us replied to it. The only reason anybody knew it was probably me is because in all the pictures I had, my hand was bruised and wrapped up and an ace bandage. But the big catch on that whole thing was he was trying to get kicked out of the band. That's why he did all this on purpose. He had overheard, Michael had already found Jari, the guy that sang on the next couple of albums from Finland. And he had already found him. He was already working on the songs as we were on tour, right? So he overhears this in his bunk. Doesn't want to confront Michael about it, So instead he just thinks, all right, I'm going to get kicked off the tour. Because if he quits, he's responsible for everybody. But if he gets kicked off,
that's different.
So,
well,
he figured this all out later.
He says in this letter, my throat was crushed and damaged to the point where I couldn't even swallow for 2 weeks due to Rev's cowardly attack. And I was like, all right, buddy.
Yeah. But yeah, well, and it's funny because then we got back, so that's why that happened. We get back off the tour and all of a sudden this lawyer, gets a hold of me and the tour manager, right? And saying, Chris's lawyer, he's going to sue for assault and all this. So our manager, Dave, he was also the tour manager for Dawkins. Well, John, the guitar player, he's a lawyer, So he said something to him. He goes, "Oh yeah, we'll countersue." So we told him, "Yeah, we're going to countersue because we have 20 witnesses that all seen him attack the tour manager while he was being held, and that I was only defending myself the whole time. And even whenever he put his finger in my face, all I could think was he just hit him while he's held. He's hitting me." And his lawyer immediately told Chris, "We can't do this. They'll win," And I didn't want to go that way anyway. I mean, I hated that the whole thing happened. But it's because hell, even that, it had to. I had to defend myself if on whether or not how did it really happen? How did this happen? And I did. It took about a year before I actually came out and told the whole story. And
aren't you glad you got to tell it again on this Sunday morning?
Oh yeah. Well, the first time it was cool because the whole time I was wanting to say something because of the way he said I cowardly attacked him and hit him from behind and all this. And so that first time I said, "What kind of moron gets his face broke from behind?"
Exactly. And let's get over to
actually, I don't even know. I don't know what his face looked like. I didn't see him after that. The production guy that went, took him to the hotel, said he told us what he looked like. That it was pretty bad. I know it was because my hand. And the thing was, my hand, I hit him just constant. It was probably 20, 30 times I hit him, and it broke on the third or fourth time. And I kept hitting him, breaking it worse, just because it was 5 years of built up anger against him, of what he did to other people. Hell, when he tried to hit Michael that night, it was the same deal. He was, he should have learned his lesson then. Me and him almost got in a fight the run before that, and he realized that it was a mistake, and then, he called me and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it." I gave him every opportunity to not, do that. But I basically saved Michael the trouble of having to fire him, because he was going to fire him after the run, and actually Jari came in the last two shows that we did on that tour. Jari came in and sang 2 songs with us at those last 2 shows. So that's when we found out about all this. We didn't know about Jari,
It's too bad because
the problem was
Chris
thought he was going to be out of the band and he was going to go on to be huge as a singer, and nobody would remember Michael and all of us. That was his mindset. So he actually did a song for a movie that it sounded really, really good, his voice. Then he did a song. He did an album with Jakey Lee. And and it was probably the best I ever heard him sing. But the problem was, it was Jake's first album back, so every review only spoke of him. Ainsley Dunbar played drums on it, and Tim Bogert played bass. So it only spoke of those three. Chris never got mentioned, so I never heard anything, about him again.
Well, hey,
And it sucks because I always wanted to see him again, so I could, just say, hey, sorry that happened, but I never seen him again.
well, you had a chance to say it right here. So if he watches this, you can say sorry it happened, and
Sorry, Chris.
we'll reconnect you and we'll do a 3-way video chat at some point. But that said, jokes aside, because I've made a couple. The band sounded great on the album, and the voice sounded great. I mean, you certainly can't fault any of the playing or any of the songs. And then let's finish with.
It was weird because it didn't really, but it probably would have got more push. But we only did 5 shows on that tour. So since we only did 5 shows, nobody really, they weren't going to push it. It was on SPV, I think. Is who put it out. Steamhammer, I think. SPV Steamhammer, I think is what it was.
And it was also a tough sell at the beginning of the 2000s. I mean, music was in such a weird place. We had gone from the Guns N' Roses and Def Leppards to the Nirvanas and the Soundgardens, and then we were starting to get into the Lits and the those bands, and it was just very strange. But all right, the new album, and we will finish on the new. We're already at an hour, by the way.
So, but that's because I can't stop talking.
I know, and we love it. We love it. We've got a great story there. Talk to me just quickly about the new album. What's it going to sound like musically? When is it going to be available?
I'm still in the recording process. I'm maybe about a third through it. I spent the first 2 months of this quarantine, probably first 2-3 months, doing all the pre-production. Getting the songs finalized, and so then I hit a spot where I was ready to start recording, and then just couldn't do anything for about a month. And so then a couple of weeks ago, I got all the guitars done, some of the bass, and just slowly working up. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to knock all the vocals out and all the rest of the bass. And then I'll get Jeff to play drums on it again, Jeff Martin. Song-wise, it's about like my last one. It just sounds like a Rev Jones album. There's a couple of new things on it, like there's like a ballad type song, a country song, just a funny country song that's just guitar, bass, vocals, and mandolin. That's
you gotta get Michael to play a solo on it.
Well, I have some guest guitar players playing on it. Michael, I don't think would do it without being paid,
Handsomely.
like his normal. I mean, because that's what happened with Jeff Martin album. The only reason he got him to play is because he never paid Jeff for playing on that other album, But so I got Joey from Warrant playing on a song, Bill from Firehouse, Jim Suler from George Thorogood. I got him on a song. Uros, he was a guitar player with Steelheart most of the time I was in there. Scott McClellan, he's from Chicago, great metal guy. Jack Frost, Kristen Capolino, Damon Fowler. He's I think you might have seen him opening for Thorogood. He plays with Dickie Betts and Butch Trucks Band. And then Mike Crosno, he was the guitar player for Toby Keith and some other country guys. I got him on it as well. And there's a couple other guys I'm waiting to hear back from, like Rowan Robertson and Ira Black. But it's going to be cool.
Wow, Rowan Robertson, that would be a fun interview. Anyway,
me and him, I'll hook you up with you. Me and him and Andy Freeman, singer for Last in Line.
Mm-hmm. I know
Andy. We had a band.
Great singer, by the way. But I'll say this: I saw Last in Line at the M3 Festival. It must have been probably 2018.
Yeah.
That was just a phenomenal performance. Viv and the band were just. It was great. It was just great, and he sings like a mother.
Yeah, Andy's great. We've done a couple of things. Me and him and Rowan had a band called Self-Important Posers. So all we would do is we'd find a drummer in a town, and we would just go play covers like Dio and Deep Purple and Priest, and we played a couple of shows doing that, and it was fun. I mean, Rowan's great. Andy's great. I'll find the videos and I'll send you the links.
There you go. And on that, as we say in Montreal, merci, monsieur. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to chat and to see you on the road with George. And last album was great. So, hey, and if you haven't checked out the Scorpion album, what was that? Be Like a Scorpion.
Be Aware Scorpion.
Be Aware Scorpion, sorry. Do check that out, because I've been checking it out in the last couple of weeks, and I'm discovering a great album that for 20 years, I sort of was like, whatever. And man, there's some great playing on that. Anyway, thank you, sir. Merci.
All right, man. Take care.